Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our podcast of many names, of which we are the Smark Avengers, Good Boys Reading Comics, Pasta Boy, the Chuckle Hut, and today we're going to be known as the Huey Lewis and the News Pod.
Wow.
Dylan, what's your favorite Huey Lewis and the News song? Go.
Oh, I really liked the one he made about soup.
John, go.
Well, The Power of Love is a classic.
Back to the Future fan, I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
The Hip to Be a Square, that's another song. I think those are the only two that I know. That and the one about soup.
The one about soup.
Anyway.
I wonder why you didn't question me about the one about soup, and that's because you don't know any of the other Huey Lewis songs.
I only know the two.
So that's perfect. For anybody who doesn't know.
The Heart of Rock and Roll Still Beating, that's a good one.
There's a really good song. I don't remember the name of it, but it's all about like his favorite kinds of soup, and it's really good.
Did Brian Wilson write that song too?
He wrote a song about vegetables.
He did.
He did.
I hear that song quite often, actually.
Just because you're a big fan of vegetables.
Yeah, absolutely.
I understand.
Cool water really cools you down. Water. Anyway, I don't know how we went from the fucking Huey Lewis to the Beach Boys, but here we are.
Beach Boys podcast it's a separate podcast.
Yeah, it's a separate one. We record it right after
that one later.
Right after the pasta one that we recorded at the same time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Anyway, so our last podcast we were talking about kind of weird, kind of obscure characters. So we're going to transition from that to talk about a character who is very well known, as they are one of the original 5 X-Men, Warren Worthington III, aka Angel, aka Archangel, or are you guys an Archangel? Like your pronunciation, is it Arch or Arc?
I would say Arc. Yeah.
I am from West Virginia originally, so just be thankful I can read it at all. Somewhere some folks back home are pissed. Anyway.
You think anybody in Virginia is listening to this?
Hold on. West Virginia, thank you very much. We didn't separate during the Civil War for you just to casually write us off as Virginians.
Well, I couldn't, whatever. It's all...
1863, motherfucker. Yeah, I took West Virginia history in middle school like everybody else.
I don't want to sound like a big old racist, but all Virginia is the same, though, isn't it? It's basically the same.
Well, I don't know what that has to do with Angel, but, we'll go ahead. So very much like our very first episode where we talked about Hank McCoy at length, we're going to talk a bit about Angel and kind of the weird spot that character is. I know that right now, John, where are you at in the current X-Men run? I don't want to spoil anything for you.
Funnily enough, last night I did start reading the first issue of X-Corps, which is an Angel-centric series where he's in charge of, I guess, like the Krakoan business model or whatever that is.
Yeah, their pharmaceutical company.
Yeah. So
yeah, I actually really liked that run. It ended really kind of weird in that it didn't seem like they announced a final issue for it. They just stopped coming out. But yeah, no, that's a really good one. I really like the cast on that too, because you have Monet from Generation X.
Mm-hmm.
Really big fan.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Madrox, I think, turns up in it as well, which I love.
Also a big
Madrox.
fan of. Yes, very big fan.
So, but yeah, with Angel, Angel's kind of the one member of the original 5 that doesn't have a lot going on. I mean, right now at this point in time, I'm not as familiar with the current going on with the X-Men books, but Cyclops is a main character in the regular X-Men book, as is Jean Grey. Iceman is on the Marauders team still, I believe. Yep. Angel was in X-Corps and Beast is in X-Force. Well, as I kind of said, X-Corps kind of just abruptly stopped. So Angel's kind of the one member of the original 5 that doesn't have a ton going on. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about him in particular. I kind of raised some eyebrows when I mentioned that of the original 5, Angel's probably my favorite. I guess if we're going to do a deep dive, we start right back at the very beginning, in the 1960s. Angel was the stuck-up rich kid of the group. He was handsome and very popular with the ladies. And of the mutations, he just has large, feathery white wings, thus the name Angel. When we were kind of looking into doing this story, or talking about it, the reason we kept kind of wanting to bring it up in the first place was there is one storyline that people keep going back to, and that is his time and his struggles with being Archangel. There was a whole big period of time, though, between 1960 and when he became Archangel. Do you guys have any familiarity with that period of time?
Yeah. I've read the whole of the original X-Men run from like 1 to 66 before they cancelled it and started doing like reprints until they relaunched it.
So yeah, he was with X-Men, the original lineup, until the end of that, and then he ended up joining the Challenger, or the Champions.
Yeah.
The book with the weirdest lineup in characters. It was him and Iceman and Hercules and Black Widow and Ghost Rider.
Nice.
Of course, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And I did, by the way, I did look up. So that whole team was this idea that they were going to be this superhero team up group in like Los Angeles, I believe.
Mm.
Apparently, the writer originally just wanted to do a book about Iceman and Angel hanging out, and editors told them like, no, it's got to be a team book. And I guess he just drew some names out of a hat to get Hercules, Black Widow, and Ghost Rider.
It makes sense.
So then after that, he joins the Defenders, in which he realigns himself with Beast as well. And then there was like a very brief period of time he was with the Avengers. I think he was only with the Avengers for maybe 6 issues. And then he started the original X Factor with the other original 5 X-Men. Have you guys ever read the original X Factor run that was it Walt Simonson?
Yeah. I've read that.
I have not read that.
So
it's interesting stuff because it's all about it's in the aftermath of Jean Grey coming back from the Dark Phoenix saga and being resurrected again, and basically Cyclops leaves his wife Madeline Pryor, who turns out to be a Jean Grey clone, to go and hook up with Jean again, abandoning his son as well in the process. But then they start like this sort of I guess agency, you could call it, where they're going around finding mutants, but they're presenting themselves as mutant hunters for some reason. I guess it was pretty much because Cameron Hodge, who was like a childhood friend of Angel, was their PR guide, and he basically tricked them into taking that route, like selling them on the idea that, oh yeah, it'd be easier to find mutants if you're, mutant hunters. But really it was just like stoking up more anti-mutant sentiment. But yeah, it was like a kind of an oddball run, but quite a fun run as well, like introduced Apocalypse and everything, so a lot going on.
Yeah, so that is that X Factor run is where he becomes Archangel. So the thing about all of these teams that he was on, Defenders and Champions and even X Factor, a lot of the common denominator between all of them is, so Warren Worthington's background is he's like the son of a millionaire. All of these teams started with his financial funding. So he was kind of like the weird sugar daddy of team up books in the 70s and 80s, where he was just the guy with the checkbook.
Right, like that's the real reason they kept him around. Like, oh, hey, Angel, you want to come? Oh, we'd love to have you on the team. Yeah, but don't forget your checkbook.
I could be wrong, John. You might correct me on this. The introduction of the Morlocks.
Right.
That was with Callisto kidnapping Angel, right?
Yeah, I believe she wanted to marry him.
Yeah, she wanted to marry him. He was pretty.
And then that sort of led to Storm challenging Callisto in a knife fight for the leadership of the Morlocks, which she won.
Wasn't it something to do with the Morlocks that Angel loses his wings, though, right?
Yep. Yeah, during the mutant massacre.
Yeah, and then that leads into the Apocalypse thing, because then like he doesn't have any wings anymore, and then Apocalypse is like, "I'll hook you up, dude. I'll hook you up."
Well, yes and no. So that's kind of where it gets weird, right? I think a lot of the time with a lot of these characters' backgrounds, because there's so many years of like monthly issues that come out, whenever something gets adapted, they go to like a very simplified version of it to get the story moving. Angel did not get approached by Apocalypse to get the metal wings and stuff. Like that was something that, well, kind of as well. So what happened?
Oh yeah, sorry, I know what happened. Yeah, he was in the. Well, you probably explain it better, right?
Well, yeah. So he was in the Mutant Massacre. He was trying to save Morlocks. One of the Marauders named Harpoon, coincidentally enough, harpooned him to a wall with his harpoons, and it really severely damaged his wings. And Cameron Hodge, basically, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Cameron Hodge convinced doctors that the wings had to be amputated.
Yeah, some sort of weird infection or something.
Yeah, I read something that they weren't actually infected. That was just Cameron Hodge being, a racist, essentially.
Yeah.
So Angel wakes up without his wings and becomes suicidal, and he tries to fly off in a private jet, and Cameron Hodge had sabotaged his plane, and it blew up, and it made it look like that Warren had committed suicide. And yeah, that's when he encounters Apocalypse, who says, "I'll give you your wings back if you serve for me." So it's a little like, I remember the animated series. It was Angel going to Apocalypse to find a cure to have his wings taken off, essentially.
Yeah, but he didn't know it was Apocalypse at the time.
Yeah. And then I think in the most recent X-Men movie that featured Apocalypse and Angel, which was the X-Men Age of Apocalypse, with Oscar Isaac playing Apocalypse, I think his wings were already mangled up, and then Apocalypse turned him into Archangel to heal the wings.
I think so. I can't really remember it too well, to be honest.
That's okay. It's a pretty forgettable movie, from what I understand.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Well, you correct us then. What happened?
I don't know, but I like the film. What the hell did happen in that film? I think
he was injured by Nightcrawler, apparently.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna say that's correct. Very good.
So yeah, that's when we get Angel getting genetically altered by Apocalypse. He gets the blue skin. He gets metal wings, and that's the birth of Archangel. Do you know the story as to why they did that?
No.
I think so. I know.
Yeah, so Walt Simonson thought that Angel was a Mary Sue, that he had no issues. He was this rich, attractive young man who didn't seem to have any worries. So they had him get his, body essentially mutilated to be blue and with metal wings and whatnot, to give him some pathos, to give him some angst.
Okay, that makes sense. That's also not what I thought it was.
What do you think it was?
I thought it was that they realized that Angel at the beginning was like, his power was that he had wings, right? And all the other X-Men developed a lot of their powers, like Iceman could turn into ice, and Cyclops could shoot lasers, and Jean Grey had powers, and Beast turned into a beast. But Angel was always just had wings, right? So at some point they were like, we need to do something to this guy to make him a bit more modern and more like comic booky to suit the more recent kind of, it's got to be lasers and powers and stuff. So now he's got metallic wings and he can fire them and shit, No,
you're not far off. That was another explanation as to why they went that particular route with him. as they felt that the wings were that he was going to get lost in the ever developing world. And I mean, it makes sense, because I remember originally Beast's powers was just that he had big feet and hands and was like super agile.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of had that in common. Every one of the X-Men of the original 5, I think, except for Cyclops, got a significant power boost. I mean, Jean was just telekinetic, and then I think was she telepathic in the original run, John?
Well, she started off as telekinetic, and then it sort of developed into telepathy as well, sort of later on. I think it was part of the original run still, rather than when they rebooted the book and everything. But yeah, it definitely wasn't something she originally had.
So like all of the characters save for Cyclops got like a power upgrade, because we were talking about this before we started. Like Iceman is considered an Omega level mutant just based on the fact that like anything that's wet he can freeze, and he can make himself giant and make copies of himself and stuff.
Yeah, I think the thing about Cyclops is what he lacked in getting extra powers, he made up with in getting extra siblings.
Yeah, that's true.
They really went to town with like, let's just keep giving them brothers.
Yeah,
never sisters. Never
Havoc
gets a sister.
Vulcan.
Yeah. But then there was a while where they were like, before they introduced Vulcan, they were like teasing, is this the Summers brother? Is this the Summers? Right? So there was like a bunch of guys who were like,
well, yeah, maybe. It was Adam the Extreme.
That's I was thinking of him. So I'm like, did they retcon him or not? I don't remember.
It's confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
So
they put out a series called X-Men Legends. The very first issue, or the very first storyline, is confirming that Adam the Extreme is in fact a Summers brother.
So that's 3 brothers he has now.
That's 3 brothers he has.
Yeah,
with the weird genetic trait that none of their powers can affect one another, because Adam the Extreme's power is he can like heat up your blood.
We had to do something. All the other ones got all sorts of stuff. Havoc, or not Havoc, Vulcan got away by getting an awful lot of stuff going on there. He seemed incredibly powerful, and you're like, nah, it's a bit much. Shoot him off into space. We don't have to worry about him. Anyway.
Yeah. But it kind of goes back to at the time in the 1960s where they were in this renaissance of the Silver Age comics and inventing Marvel characters. Just Angel having wings, that's totally fine. But as you introduce new mutants, you have Nightcrawler, who's quite literally a blue little demon who can teleport, and Wolverine, who's got a healing factor and unbreakable bones, and Claws, and Colossus, who can turn himself into steel, and Storm, who controls the weather. Yeah, guy with wings isn't the most impressive thing in the world any longer.
Right.
So the remedy for that was to make Archangel. And that kind of begins where we were talking about topic-wise. It gets strange with Warren because they don't ever commit to what they want to do. So earlier we were talking about how when we were researching this, we kept finding they would flirt with the idea of something with Warren and then just undo it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Which is really boring after a while, right? That makes it harder to get into this guy if like every time you read a story about him, they go back and do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Not just boring, but confusing as well, where they give him powers and stuff, and then
they take him away.
They just disappear after a while.
Yeah.
With Angel, before the transformation into Archangel, he was somebody who was had leadership qualities. He was charming. He was, like I said, good looking. He was wealthy. He had a lot of friends. His relationship with Beast and Iceman, like I said, they were the ones that always palled around together outside of the X-Men. When he transformed into Archangel and returned to the X Factor series as a villain before, coming to his senses, one of the big noticeable differences with Archangel over who Angel was rage issues and a bit of a bloodlust. So Angel, who, kind of had the most inoffensive powers, now became this bloodthirsty monster, essentially, who had razor sharp wings that could launch them off as darts, as well as just cut your head off with them.
He liked cutting people's heads off, that's for sure.
He's a big fan.
Who doesn't?
So this is kind of the beginning of like the non-committal stuff, because for the next, like, this was like the 1980s when this happened with Archangel. For the next like 30, 40 years, these storylines kind of repeated themselves with Angel with various small little changes. And one of the big ones was this kind of non-commitment to, is Archangel a entity that possesses him, like a different personality that was unlocked in his head, or is it just his unprocessed, repressed anger? That was a big one that I noticed. Was some people want to say that Archangel's this kind of deity that has possessed him, and there are instances as well where he's like, no, it's just me, I need to work on myself.
Right.
I think as well there was a point where when Apocalypse was dead, possibly, and then like some sort of Apocalypse seed or something kind of spawned inside or activated inside of Archangel, and kind of he became like the next sort of generation of Apocalypse as well.
Yeah, the Death Seed, I believe.
Yeah, that's the one.
That was some words that I kept seeing hop in and out while I was doing research, was Death Seed and Life Seed.
Yeah. And it never stopped getting confusing.
Yeah. It sure as hell didn't. So to kind of show an edginess to him, I know he didn't like Wolverine very much.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was a thing, is that the one bloodthirsty killer didn't like the other bloodthirsty killer.
But they didn't like each other going back to before that anyway. I think like between his Champions and Defenders run, he did come back to the X-Men briefly, and then quickly left because he had these personality clashes with Wolverine, because he thought, a deranged killer shouldn't be on the team, basically.
Coincidentally enough.
Yeah.
So that was one of the big things that kind of kept coming and going, was just that personality issue. Another was his physical appearance kept changing as well. So for the longest time, after he had blue skin and metal wings, his metal wings broke and shattered to reveal his feathery wings had been growing back underneath them this entire time. So then he was blue skinned with white fluffy wings. And then his blue skin went away and he went back to his regular skin tone with white fluffy wings. And then he found that he could switch back and forth between the two. But when he did, he lost control of his personality and was in like death mode. And then he found out that he would get stuck in one mode. And then there were clones at one point that he had to reabsorb. And so, yeah, like I said, it's as non-committal as it sounds. And that was another kind of weird thing, was that we were talking about how they kind of bumped up everybody's powers. They tried to do the same with Angel, but again, they didn't want to commit to anything.
Right. They didn't know what they wanted them to do or what they wanted them to be. Like, is he edgy Archangel? Is he like good boy just Angel? Like, they didn't even stick with the kind of like the proper duality of the two characters. They were just kind of like, they just went mad with all of it instead of like telling a good story with the kind of, because some of the stuff that goes on there is just really confusing with Angel, like needlessly confusing. There's no need for this shit to be as confusing as it is for a guy who just can fly,
Yes. So he had a healing factor and a hypersonic scream and an energy halo. And then I'm on the Marvel database, and there's a section here that says, after life seed resurrection, after Psylocke stabbed him with a celestial life seed, Angel returned to his normal form, but with techno-organic wings instead of regular ones, and gained several new abilities. So speed boost, essence reading, where basically he could read your aura. Resurrection, so he could raise the dead. And he could also shoot energy blasts and create constructs like a Green Lantern.
Yeah, I'm still. Why would they be like, we gotta get somebody to be able, one of these characters needs to be able to raise the dead. That's really important. Fucking Angel, that'll do. Right? Because biblically, that's what angels did, right? They rose the dead.
Yeah. So here's some more powers that he had at one point or another. Life force manipulation. He has the ability to heal all kinds of energies, both physical and mental in nature.
Except his own.
Psionics. He could elongate the tips of his fingers into claws of psi-like energy. He could create mental blocks to shield he could shield his mind from telepathic intrusion. He had limited telepathic communication.
What?
I don't remember any of this.
That's right. We're not even going to touch the time displaced X-Men where he got cosmic wings from the black vortex. We're not even going to touch that. That's its own fucking thing.
I think that should be a show. We'll have to do a show about that at some point, right?
Oh, the original. We touched a little bit on it with the Beast episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a fucking interesting period of time that was.
Again, the word interesting seems a little bit like what you really mean to say is bad.
So I remember one of them. This was from the very, very much hated Chuck Austin run of X-Men, where Angel had sex with a young girl in the air above her mom. I remember that being a thing that happened.
Okay, what?
Yeah. So he started a relationship with Husk from Generation X, and so there was a bit of an age gap there. And he proceeded to take her up into the sky with him, and they had sex, and her mom was like outside and looked up and saw them in the midst of that. So that was the thing that happened with Chuck Austin writing. Also, Angel found out his blood could heal people.
Yeah.
So he started just doing like blood transfusions, and this was like the early 2000s. So we're not that far removed from the AIDS crisis. So that seemed like a real weird choice too.
But
and again,
all this shit for like one guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and none of it stuck.
Nope.
At all. So another one, and this is my favorite one that happened, and John, I know for a fact that you read this too. So this was after Psylocke. So Angel, had an evil seed in him after Apocalypse died, and he started to become just totally evil again. And then Psylocke stabbed him with a life seed, and he kind of died and came back with just regular human skin and hair, but with metal wings. He also lost his entire memory and took on like this childlike essence and believed that he was really an angel for a period of time.
Yeah.
So that was during the Wolverine and the X-Men series, where he was a student. They basically, to I guess, help him, they were like, so here's Angel, he's our like old friend, he's probably canonically in his 30s at this point. We're gonna put him in like a class with a bunch of 13-year-olds because his memory's been wiped and he thinks he's like an angel.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's totally fine. Also, like we said, he did have sex with a young girl whenever he's several years older, but he's not a predator. So anyway, here he is in the class with you guys. Don't worry. He says that his mind's all weird and he doesn't remember stuff, and I believe him. So here's the fun. Fine with you guys.
So Husk was also a teacher at the school, at the Jean Grey Institute of Learning. Husk was a teacher there, and she started a relationship with our friend Toad.
What?
Yeah.
Wolverine and the X-Men was a really interesting run. Husk got into a relationship with Toad. And then when you factor in that her ex-boyfriend, Angel, is in her class, essentially, it gets really weird. But anyway, so how do you... Going back to... So we have Angel, who's been reduced to this weird... Thinks that he's really an angel. How do you get him out of that? Do you want to take a stab in the dark, John, as to how they reverted Angel from that personality back to his regular one?
obviously there's got to be some sort of major trauma or something to trigger this. So maybe Apocalypse shows up again and, I don't know, zaps him with some sort of memory ray or something.
Dylan, what do you think?
Well, I think in this case, if it's a classic case of amnesia, the best way to do it is, of course, a bonk on the head with something really heavy, and then he gets all his memories back. That, to me, is the most logical way to do it.
You are both incorrect. It happened off panel after the Wolverine and the X-Men comic series ended, and it was never addressed.
Good. Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. That's a clean getaway on that one. But yeah, so that's kind of, like I said, this weird non-committal thing that they just do with him, where it's like, well, this is an idea. This will separate him out a little bit. Maybe we should try this for a while. It didn't work. I will just act like it never happened. That's fine. So, as we were talking about currently, the last time that Angel was really featured, he was featured pretty prominently in a tie-in to the Empire storyline. But aside from that was X-Corps, which is sort of the team-up book of the Krakoa has introduced basically plants that can cure all illnesses, and they're going to run it like a business. So because Warren came from a family of businessmen, he got put in charge of it.
Yeah, because his family, owned a business, and he has spent his entire adult life dicking about,
fighting crime.
He probably knows enough about business as any other businessman in the 21st century. He's well qualified.
Well, hey, I would say he's must be a pretty good businessman if he still has money left after.
That's true.
He's got every single team he's been on has begged him for cash to make a new X mansion or a fucking jet plane or whatever.
He bankrolled the champions. He bankrolled the defenders. He bankrolled X Factor. He definitely bankrolled a lot of the various lineups of the X-Men. And
X-Force as well, definitely.
And X-Force.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that we can, that we should bring up too is, so you have, we'll step outside of the writing. We'll just jump into, in the world, as a character in the Marvel universe, Angel is somebody who struggles with these violent urges. And he has a hard time keeping them under control. So what's the best thing we can do for somebody who is struggling with control? We put him in the secret mutant kill squad with Wolverine and X-23 and Warpath and all of our other just kind of morally gray killer characters. Well, Psylocke and Phantom X and all sorts of folks.
Like Deadpool. You said, though, he loves cutting people's heads off.
Yeah.
That's not good for him, though.
But then also, like you said, he's always had a bit of a tenuous relationship with Wolverine.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, come on into this team of killers with Wolverine. And he's like, got it. I will happily bankroll this. No questions asked. But one stipulation: do not stab me with a life seed. And Psylocke's like, no dice.
Yeah. I know that you're my girlfriend at this time. Just, try not to do that.
You can stab me with whatever you want except a life seed.
So yeah. So he's part of the secret mutant kill squad. And then it's revealed that they were the super mutant kill squad and the other X-Men were kind of uncomfortable, which it makes sense. So basically Cyclops goes, hey, there's only 197 of us left. We should probably be proactive and keep the people that are constantly trying to kill us from killing us. So I'm going to give Wolverine just carte blanche. Do what you got to do. If we don't even necessarily need to hear about it, as long as you're taking care of business.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So they get found out, and it's like a huge to-do, and it's kind of like a black mark on Cyclops' leadership that he sanctioned this. So what does Wolverine and Archangel do? They start another more secret kill squad, which is what inevitably led to the whole, having a death seed awaken inside of him and having to get stabbed by a life seed by his girlfriend.
I bet he feels pretty stupid.
Just the silliness of it all.
Yeah, he's like, oh, if only we hadn't kept it so secret, Cyclops might have been able to help me, but no, fucked it up.
No, and that's again though, like I said, if you have somebody who is struggling with this desire to kill people, putting them on the team that gets to kill people carte blanche probably wasn't a great idea.
Well, no,
It's gonna
but
cost.
also, I mean, that yes, from that point of view, correct. But from the point of view of the writing, it has a big connection to Apocalypse. So there you go.
That's true.
Apocalypse equal, like we said, this whole show. The one thing that everybody can associate Angel with is Apocalypse. That whole Archangel thing, Apocalypse, Angel, they seem to be twins somehow. Like they always seem to be around each other, even though Apocalypse quite often just fucks around and does stuff without Angel. But on
Whenever
the
Angel
flip side,
is involved,
it feels like a lot of the time, whenever Archangel is around, it has something to do with Apocalypse. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, because even after Apocalypse was dead, in the attempt to, because then it was Genesis was around. Gosh, Genesis. It feels weird to even think about Genesis. It's been so long since that was supposed to be this huge earth-shattering thing. Dylan, do you know who Genesis is?
Was that Baby Apocalypse?
Baby Apocalypse, yes. Evan, who that was one of the X-Force missions, was to kill him.
I read that one. They killed Apocalypse, and then Phantom X like he brought like the embryo or whatever back to what was that place he worked in? Neverland? Where did Phantom X come from? What was the place he came from?
The world, wasn't it?
The world, yeah. Didn't he like raise his own like Apocalypse in there?
Yeah, it was the clone of Apocalypse that was being bred to kind of replace the one who'd gone missing or died or whatever.
Yeah.
And then and X-Force's mission was to try and kill this clone, but then when they got there and found he was a kid, none of them could do it except for Phantom X, who was like, yeah, fuck it. Let's kill the kid.
Yeah, I kill people. What's wrong with you bitches?
Yeah.
The whole point of this group is that we kill people. Deadpool's on this fucking team. What are we doing here, guys?
It did give us one of our one of the most amazing comic panels of all time of Deadpool slicing off parts of his own body to feed to a barely conscious Archangel to heal him. It's pretty gruesome.
Part of the for the chorus with Deadpool, you know.
Yeah, I think like Archangel's slowly coming to, and Deadpool's just stuffing like meat in his mouth. He's like, "Where did you get this?" And it just like like the panel pulls out and this Deadpool cutting parts of his arm off. Don't worry about it. Just eat up, baby bird.
See that? Even then, old Angel just gets to be the butt of the joke.
Well, like you said, it's so strange. It's like based off just reading like the databases and the wikis, and then going back to my memories of reading a lot of those comics, it didn't feel like Angel was at a deficit. Like he was still featured pretty prominently. He was very well adjusted, but he also still had his own like issues. Like you said, he had the Cameron Hodge problem, who became kind of his nemesis and one of the first real villains of X Factor aside from Apocalypse. Just, yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like the second they created Archangel, they're like, all right, we never have to worry again. We've got him down. And it's kind of like it goes again back to what we're talking about with Beast, where it feels like they found their one note and we're going to hit this one note with this one character over and over again.
Right. Like they spend a lot of time trying to add more stuff to Angel and try to flesh him out. But at the end of the day, like when we look back at it now, they haven't really done that. All people still remember him for is the fucking Apocalypse stuff. Because the rest of the stuff is so complicated and confusing. And like you said, they could just change it off panel if they want to. They'll just go back on it or make some new bullshit up. We all know that what's going to happen is he's just going to turn back into Archangel. That's just what's going to happen.
And now he has the ability to do so at will. Like he can just turn it off and on.
Yeah, I think hasn't Professor X like basically cured him of his mental instability, so he can basically retain full control of himself when he's in Archangel form.
Yes, as of right now, that is something that he has the control to do. You just started reading X-Core, and I don't want to spoil too much about it, but that does play a huge part into his character, is that control he has as Archangel.
Cool. I look forward to that.
Yeah, it's like I said, X-Core is not a bad series. It's introduces a lot of fun ideas.
I think that's the thing about Angel, is that like there's potential there, but like instead of capitalizing on any of that potential, they're like, let's just make up a bunch of shit.
Let's just add a new power.
Yeah.
You know? It's a very cheap thing to do. We'll just add a new power.
Yeah. You know, should we focus on the fact that, like you said, he's one of the few X-Men now that actually could probably pass for a regular human? Should we focus more on like the duality of his own personality, or he can breathe fire now?
Yeah.
We can use that for 2 issues and then forget about it.
Or, I mean, you know, it's constantly been shown to be a carefree thing that he has all of this money, but like, what's it like to be a very wealthy mutant? You know, like that's
right.
Follow up on that. What's that? Shit? What's the business with that?
Like, surely that's really difficult too. Like, not just being a mutant, but having to be a mutant in like this other world, the business world, which are very, you know, you get the idea that a lot of businessmen are kind of, you know, they use you for what they need you for. But you would also imagine that kind of world wouldn't really, a lot of those businessmen wouldn't really want to be associating with mutants. They would only associate with Angel because he's incredibly rich. So like, surely there's a story to be told there, right?
Yeah, X-Core touches on it a little bit.
Or, you know, he could turn invisible.
Yeah.
We'll do that for 2 issues and then forget about it.
So the struggle that happens with that is that non-committal thing, right? Is Angel, like most all other mutant characters in the X-Men, is part of a team book. And we were talking about this a little bit before we started with, like, say, the Eternals versus Guardians of the Galaxy. One was a very, very well-received movie that spawned sequels and a Christmas special, and the other is considered like one of the worst received Marvel movies they've ever put out. Mm-hmm. When you have a team book, you have to actively pursue featuring at least 1 to 2 characters, and then everybody else you have to make interesting enough that they could support like a B or a C storyline. And I think that's a real struggle right now. The current X-Men run that John probably won't be on for a bit, one of the characters that they have focused a lot of their time and energy on is Cinch. And Cinch is probably the least name brand character on the X-Men team, but the writer has dedicated that book to making Cinch a bigger deal and telling their story through Cinch's eyes for the most part. So that's going to be a struggle, is you have to have somebody that sees this line of the X-Men and are actively deciding, I'm going to do something with Angel.
Yeah, I guess as well, especially because of all this baggage, maybe that kind of puts writers off from wanting to use him as well, because it's almost too much to, you know, have to deal with, really. Going back to all the Archangel stuff and this and that and all the powers that have been established and forgotten over the years, it's easier just to leave him to the side and focus on someone else.
Right. Yeah. I don't know how much you know about Penance or you know, or an M, John, but she's the other main character of the X-Core for that, pretty much that same reason.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, that's why I really liked X-Core as a book, because it was doing a lot of really interesting things, and like I said, it just feels like I don't think they even announced it was being canceled. It was just 1 month it just didn't come out, and it never came out again. But that's
just
okay.
Just like Angel's powers.
Yep, it happened and then it didn't, and then we never talked about it again.
Just don't talk about it.
We talked about this with in the Beast episode. There have been some live action portrayals of Angel. X-Men X3, he's played by Ben Foster.
Mm-hmm.
who's a great character actor.
Yeah.
In X-Men: Age of Apocalypse, he's played by another Ben, who I think is Ben Hardy.
Yeah.
And I think there's a small role in like X2 that is played by a character or by another actor, but I don't think it's anything substantial.
Oh, I don't know about that. I can't remember.
But so X2 or the Ben Foster adaptation, he's there and they tease the wings coming off, but it doesn't happen and he keeps his wings. And then Age of Apocalypse, obviously, because we touched on it, he does lose his wings.
Yeah, I kind of remember in X-Men: The Last Stand, he was basically a nothing character in it. He had one scene in the beginning, and then kind of teases wanting the mutant cure, and then comes back to, I think, does he come back to help in the big fight at the end? But
like you say, he doesn't really do a whole lot.
No, and especially when you got like an actor of Ben Foster's caliber, and they basically just wasted him, really.
Yeah, I think so. It felt like there was going to be more to it than what they did with him. You know.
The animated series, he had a couple episodes where he showed up as Archangel. Like I said, they did the storyline with Apocalypse there, where he went to find him, and then had the whole shebang there. He was in the Wolverine and the X-Men cartoon, played by Liam O'Brien, who's a really good voice actor. And let's see, was he in any of the video games? I don't think he was, because having a character with wings gets a little difficult in video games sometimes. Let me see. I'm sure he was in X-Men Legends because everybody was in that.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure he was in the Lego Marvel superheroes as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was most likely going to be in X-Men Legends as a playable character, but it got pulled out, so he was not in X-Men Legends. And he was as a boss in X-Men Legends 2 Rise of Apocalypse as a boss. So he was not a playable character in X-Men Legends.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
Well, they couldn't program him in because they're like, well, what powers do he has? And they're like, we don't know. Just make it up. It changes every week.
How are we going to have him heal people with his blood? How will we make that a playable thing?
And then they're like, oh, he doesn't do that anymore. And you're like, what?
For a person whose power is wings, I feel like they just overcomplicated it.
Yep.
Like they didn't need to do anything super special with him. They didn't need to go out of their way to make him more interesting by giving him different powers. If you give people a reason to care about someone, they will.
Right. Like I feel like part of the problem with Angel that ties along with the idea of giving him more powers is that they try to make him like cool. And I'm like, not every character has to be cool, right?
Yeah.
Wolverine's a cool guy. Angel doesn't have to be the cool guy. Angel could just be the rich snobby guy. That can be. He's allowed to just have that character trait. Somebody has to do that. That can be Angel, right? But no, he's got all this other bullshit going along, and then he's Archangel, and then he's bad.
Got blue skin and metal wings.
Yeah, he can heal people.
The wings he can shoot darts out of the wings.
Yeah, fucking.
The darts are poisonous.
But sometimes.
Where do the darts come from?
Are they part of the wings, all right?
I guess so, yeah. They're just, like the feathers of the wings, essentially.
Yeah.
But they're metal. Do they grow back?
Yeah, they do grow back. It's a techno-organic technology that Apocalypse uses.
I guess.
See, that all makes sense, kind of.
Didn't they have a ship that was alive in X Factor, John?
Yes. Well, I think it was just called Ship as well.
Well, that was that not
Walt did it again.
Cable's ship?
What was that? Sorry.
Was Cable's thing was called Ship, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, you might be right actually. Although
might have been the same ship.
Yeah. It might have been the same ship because Apocalypse had his ship was like it could like techno-organic whatever, I think. Some kind of celestial technology that he used. But I thought
Prosh.
Huh?
His name's Prosh.
Okay.
Ship's AI, Prosh. Was
Fair
celestial. Enough. They left the ship after the second host.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was just weird that they decided, oh yeah, here's Apocalypse's ship. Let's turn that into our new base then.
Why
I
not?
just want to say I loved comics back then. They didn't have to, I feel like comics these days have lost a lot of that spontaneity of something weird happening.
Yeah.
And then not being treated like a big deal.
I mean, you say that,
Here's-
but we've spent an hour talking about all the weird shit they've done to Angel and then not treating it like a big deal.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we're talking about like, I guess modern day comics within like the last like 5 or so years. I feel like, I don't know. I don't get the same sort of sense of like anything can happen. Everything feels like it's so purposely planned out and made to feel grandiose.
Yeah, I get that. Like everything's like it's all leading to another big crossover or something, you know.
Yeah.
Whenever just shit just used to happen, you're like, oh wow, fucking, which is the way it's supposed to be, surely, you know.
That was kind of our dive on Angel. When it comes down to, like kind of like with Beast, we were talking about how a lot of our concerns with Beast is he was sort of becoming a one-note caricature of this morally gray, genius. My concern with Angel is he's become this one-note Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde with Archangel and Apocalypse. Any final thoughts you guys have on the topic of Angel?
I'd like to see him have more powers. I'd like him to be able to be like 6 feet tall. No, 60 feet tall. 6 feet tall.
He might already be there. That's
Is
a
he
power
6
that
foot
he had
tall?
this whole time.
He's probably taller, so he'd have to shrink down to 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
I'd like him to be able to shrink, but only shrink by like 3 inches. That's all I gotta say about Angel.
What about you, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's storyline potential there, but you just gotta not rely so much on the Archangel stuff and find something new to do with him, which doesn't involve giving him a new power. But yeah.
I guess if we're going to end it on any note, Dylan, I want you to know that according to the Marvel database and the Marvel fandom wiki, 2 separate sources, Angel is approximately 6 feet tall.
Well, then he doesn't have to grow at all.
Nope.
He's perfectly fine.
That maybe he's been using his power this entire time.
Right. Maybe he really is 6'3", but he's been shrinking himself down to 6 foot, not so he doesn't embarrass everybody else, you know.
And on that note, we'll see you guys later. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.